Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I hope you guys are having a great evening. I did a marathon lap of translating today.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who turned in earlier and were listening to Mexican crossing lines in Spanish and thought, I can't understand what's going on, this show is for you. It's all in English, and you're going to understand everything beautifully, so you're going to find out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just finished translating the Spanish version of this article, which I wrote in Spanish for Mexicans in Tijuana so that they could be alerted to who all of the infiltrators are in the caravan. All the Standing Rock phonies, all the Standing Rock bad actors that are currently in Tijuana. I wanted people in Mexico to know right away who they are, what they're up to, who they're connected to, what groups and people they are working with, so they can identify them and so that they can work against the negative effects that those people tend to bring wherever they turn up. So what I did was that I wrote an article about Standing Rock Caravan Infiltrators, and it will be available, published later by the Duke.
Oh, yeah.
Duke, my husband,
Mm-hmm.
on our website. When do you think you'll be able to get that up onto the website?
Later
KPPP?
tonight.
Later tonight. Did you hear that? So later tonight, you'll be able to go to kpppfm.com and check out this article with all its links and pictures. I'm going to use the same links and pictures from the one in Spanish, but I can tell you what it says. So
Yep,
chill.
exactly.
It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. The most important thing is that you know the content of this and that you share it and tell everyone about it, okay? So tell them you're listening to Cindy Gomez-Schempp
And you're listening to Duke Gomez-Schempp.
on a Mexican Crossing Lines on 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we're adding local color to your airwaves. And you can also find all of our other shows and articles at kpppfm.com. There's a whole bunch of other places you should be following us on social media and subscribing and sharing our shows. And I want Duke to tell you all about them.
Definitely. There's lots of places to find us. One is actually on our Facebook, our actual Facebook. I've been saying it all this time. And, 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead. But when you go to Facebook, it's actually... the KPPP radio. But if you type in 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead, then you can catch us on Facebook. You can go to our other Facebook sites. We have Mexi-Can and the People's Press Project. Also, you can find us on Twitter at media_PPP, Tumblr on Mexican Crossing Lines, and Instagram at Gomez-Schempp, and YouTube at Duke1517. That's a channel I made a long time ago. And I have to keep it because I have all our videos on there. So it's just my name with 1517 after it, but Duke 1517, or just type in Duke Schempp and you'll find us there. You can also give us a call if you want to leave us a voice message at 701-566-0917. Again, that number is 701-566-0917, and it's a message line. So you can leave us a message there. If that's not your thing, you can do email, Cindy at kpppfm.com, or me, Duke at kpppfm.com. And that site, kpppfm.com, is our main website for our radio station. If you go there, you can find all of our podcasts, all of our shows. We are doing YouTube uploads to there. And we put the text of the article there, and you can find our past shows there. And also, you can read more about what we're doing. And also remember that we're a nonprofit organization, or a nonprofit, non-commercial radio station. There's not very many of us, but we rely on the benevolence of people to make donations to help us raise the funds to be able to keep the radio station open. And we're doing a year-end fundraiser right now. We're trying to get people to give a year-end tax-deductible donation to us. And you can actually go to kpppfm.com/donate, and there's some text there, and there's a link in there, and they'll take you to a Facebook link where you can use either a credit card or a Facebook account to make a donation. And it's fully tax-deductible. You'll get a receipt by the end of the year from us, because we are an authentic 501c3, and we need to do that and make sure our donors are happy and they know where their money went. We'll use every bit of that money to fund the programming, the outreach, the community involvement, to be able to do these radio shows and to stay on the air, and we'd really, really appreciate that. You can also go to kpppfm.com, read a bit of our history. You know, we're a station that was only about 1,700 stations that got granted a few years ago. It was a 3-year process, and it was a lot of work to actually get an FCC license. And we're going to have that license for another couple of years. So I think it was a 7-year amount that we could have the license. Then we have to apply again. I've looked at the application. It looks really difficult, but we'll figure it out by then. So, you know, go to kpppfm.com. Our Facebook site has been really popular. The 88.1 FM Facebook site has been really popular. Most people have been sending this information there, and because you can do attachments, and there doesn't seem to be a limit to how much you can send. And we really appreciate all the tips people have given us, all the information. There's so much happening right now, especially when it comes to the migrant caravan, that we're getting videos, we're getting tips, and we're getting sometimes duplicate messages, but it doesn't matter because this information needs to get out. And we're trying to put out as much as we can, and tonight's show is about that too.
It is. I do appreciate all the stuff that y'all have been sending me. It seems like what's happening right now in Mexico is really beginning to accelerate.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the reason for that is that this planned caravan protest, I don't know. There's so many aspects to the functioning of the caravan and what it's doing to Mexico, to Mexicans, to American politics, to migration policy, all these things. They're all converging, and it's all happening right now in Mexico. In many ways, it is very similar to me to what was happening at Standing Rock and the ways in which things accelerated there.
Yeah,
doesn't it remind you of that?
Oh, it reminds me of all the infiltration that Standing Rock had. And there's so many similarities. The tactics are the same. It's like Standing Rock was a testing ground to how to undermine a people's movement, how to undermine social justice work under the guise of liberal do-gooders and strangers to the movement. And it's been going on for a long time, even before Standing Rock. But I think Standing Rock was the biggest test of how you infiltrate and you raise a lot of money and not really give it to the people that money is being raised for, but lining the pockets of all these different people, like the Water Protector Legal Collective. And some of the people we're going to be talking about tonight have raised already for the migrant caravans, like thousands of tens of thousands of dollars have been raised. People want to do something. They want to give to a cause. And since there's a language barrier, even though Spanish is spoken quite widely in the United States, and it's one of the original languages in North America, and but people are just relying on other people going there, and there's a lot of English speakers that are going down and infiltrating this caravan, and they don't have a relationship with the people, they don't speak the language, they don't know the culture, and they're basically infiltrating, and they're victimizing people through this whole process. And we want you to watch out for them. And some of these names are going to be the same names you've heard before that were involved in Standing Rock, plus many more.
Oh, yeah. They're familiar names. You're going to recognize these names. Some of them are new. Some of them you haven't probably heard. But there was a lot of other camps, protests, campaigns, marches, and things that happened after Standing Rock, in which many of the people that were participants at Standing Rock went to. So I won't get into all the details of them in this article, but I'm going to go through some of that as well. Okay, let's get started. So, Standing Rock Caravan Infiltrators. This is the summary of events. The people that have been identified in this report and persons that are connected to groups and leaders which I've been investigating since 2016, when a protest unfolded here in North Dakota against the Dakota Access Pipeline. What people experienced in North Dakota as a result of these individuals and groups that they were leading was that they resulted in innocent people and third parties being hurt because of their actions, either by injury, theft, kidnapping, rape, and more. They are part of the makeup of a vast and sophisticated network, which is comprised of politicians, members of Congress, activists, media, clergy, nonprofits, veterans, and actors from Hollywood. The powerful financiers and supporters who give these groups visibility manage their actions from a distance through leaders whom they control. The goal of these groups for the migrant caravan are, one, to raise money. Money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2, to misinform and agitate the caravan. 3, to put the Mexican people and their authorities at odds with the caravan. And 4, to cause clashes, preferably violent ones, with authorities on either side of the border. You want to talk about those just for just a second? Can we talk about them for just a second?
Oh, yeah, let's talk about them.
I'll get back to the article in a minute. But let's just talk about those for a second. 1, there's a pattern, raising money. It doesn't matter if they raise the money for and or use it for the cause that they raise the money for. In fact, what we've seen in Tijuana is that people are raising money around $2,000 for each thing for an emergency cause.
Yeah.
The emergency C-section.
Oh, yeah.
We need $2,000 for that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the Mexican authorities at that shelter that they have, they're refusing people medical care. It's alarming. And we need $2,000 for an emergency C-section. The woman they were raising the money for, she disappeared. Poof, into thin air. But they still, they probably raised that money. So what happened, if you'll recall recently, I exposed one of these frauds from Standing Rock raising money for fake gunshot wounds. It's an emergency.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And all of the people in their phony people network, phony leadership network, John Gonzalez, Joy Brunn, what's her name? Hot Potato. No. Lolly B.
Lolly B. Yeah. Hot Potato.
Lolly B. Laura Christina Livingston Berger.
Oh, yes.
Chumash's girl.
Mm-hmm.
That person, all of these people that had a big following out at Standing Rock were raising money for fake gunshot wounds, right? They were jerking your tears, jerking your chain, and jerking your cash.
Mm-hmm.
And they raised that money quick. The guy was in a hospital, been shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
I showed you that without too much fuss, without too much hard work, we were able to quickly uncover from his Facebook posts that it was all a fraud. Immediately following that, a lot, if not every single one of the people that promoted this fraudulent money grab by Mitchell, Mitra, Orlando Cruz, John Gonzalez, Lolly B, all of them said, sorry, not sorry. Yes, we were robbing people, but that means I have a big heart. So it's okay. Plus PTSD, because we're warriors and such. And then they said, oh, we're not giving back the money either. No. We're going to keep this money and give it to this other thing. Mm-hmm. Somebody whose house burned down.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't even know if these things are for sure going to the people that they say they're going to, or if the crisis is manufactured or real. But there is definitely a pattern to what happens in the petition of the money. And before you know it, there's a new crisis. There's a new tragedy that you have to pitch in for. Anything you can give, $5, $10, $100. You know, we're only raising $2,000. That's all we need.
Yeah.
Right? So these folks are getting better at raising money. It really doesn't matter. And they're getting smarter too. Notice how in Puerto Rico I showed you how they used children that had, you know, either some kind of physical disability or mental disability. Mm-hmm. And they put pictures everywhere, paraded, exploited is the correct word. Those people and their faces, just like they're doing in this Mexico Tijuana caravan, where Mark Lane is promoting and raising funds off of the girl in the wheelchair. And all of these asylum seeker people that are posting about raising the money for the C-section lady are also exploiting somebody's name, face, or even the figment of the idea of a caravan goer in need that they are raising money for. They're personally trying to help, supposedly. So, the raising money, who it's going to and for what, who the hell knows? But that is a main fixture of what they're doing, raising money. Mm-hmm. Hand over fist, as quickly as humanly possible. Yep. And then, number 2, misinformation and agitation. So, one of the reasons that this is, I guess, necessary, or that it is one of their end games and goals in manipulating the caravan, is because in order to keep the caravan under their control and therefore be able to use them as a weapon to shut down the border, to shut down traffic, to shut down commerce, which will cost Mexico and the United States millions of dollars. They need to keep everybody together in one spot, and they need to keep them there until their agenda has been fulfilled. If that takes 1 or 2 months or more, that's how long they have to stay there. Never mind that they're not going to be living in decent conditions and that they may be traveling with their children, and that they would be much better off trying to get housing where they are and or get work so that they can survive, you know? No. They're going to continue to maintain a specter of fear over the caravan goers for as long as possible and over as many of them as possible so that they can control what they do and when they do it. Because humanitarian aid is being offered to the caravan by the Mexican government and by the Mexican people, by Mexican nonprofits and by Mexican churches, by the state and federal government. So why are so many of them rejecting that help? Because of misinformation and agitation. They continually tell the caravan that the only way this is going to work is you have to have the people of America see Donald Trump for the racist monster that he is. Mm-hmm. And the only way they're going to see that is if you show him the Americans' tendency to tear gas children and women, to shoot them with rubber bullets. And yes, maybe that will require some people in the back somewhere, which we will later claim we did not put up to doing this, to throw some rocks at the cops and jump over the wall and do some crazy things, right? But in the end, if it makes the people of America rise up in anger and go, what the hell is going on? Then it will be all worth it because you'll end up getting asylum. Now, that's not how policy or politics work. And I don't believe that a vast majority of those in this caravan either qualify for asylum or will be granted asylum. But that doesn't matter to the people that are agitating them and lying to them about what's really going on and what their options really are. So that is number 2, and that's why they're doing it. Number 3 is, in order to maintain control over the caravan and keep the people under their influence with their lying, right, and their direct donation chain to them, their direct supply chain to these people, they need to make sure that they don't make other friends or have other support and allies. So they need to put the Mexican people who are currently hosting them, housing them, and giving them support against them. They need to fill the people with ideas to make them hate the people that are actually hosting them, to make them fear them, to make them mistreat them, abuse them, seem ungrateful to them, and make the Mexican people themselves begin to reject and begin to request that these people be deported or jailed for their actions. Because all that does is to paint Mexicans in the same light as Trump supporters in America, and to keep the caravan under the control of those manipulating and financing the damn thing. Okay? That's number 3. And number 4 is they have to cause clashes. It can't just be a peaceful protest. Media does not care about that. There's a reason why they say, if it bleeds, it leads. Because what really captures Americans and attention of everyone is the images they're trying to put in your head. Remember, I told you they make up things that didn't happen, like a little girl dying. Didn't happen. They say that 12 people went into the ocean and only 1 came out. Didn't happen. But they want to bring up the images of Syrians washing up on the shore because everyone was so moved by that little baby, that little boy that washed up, one of the Syrian refugees. And that imagery, it boggles the mind, can be created for you. They can create situations in which people do get injured and do die simply to pull at your heartstrings. I know that seems hard to believe, but I've lived through Standing Rock and I know better now. People will falsely charge people. People will lie, outright lies and fabrications. It happens. It's true. I witnessed it, so believe. So, it is important to those who are leading this and manipulating the caravan that Americans begin to see Mexican authorities as oppressors and cruel, to further their justification that the caravan must leave Mexico for their own safety.
Oh, boy.
This will also supposedly put pressure on Trump. How do you think Trump is feeling pressured right about now? Did you see the news conference this morning with Pelosi?
He's not feeling pressured. He's feeling vindicated. He says, look at all the people pouring over the border. I'm like, pouring over the border? You know, and he's going to shut down the government and be proud of it. And he wants that money for that wall. It's falling right into him wanting to build this wall. And he's a lot of people in the United States that are like, you know, don't know any better and don't have really any history or real knowledge of what's going on, are like, yeah, build the wall, you know, and so he's using this for the max. In fact, for them to push all these people into Tijuana, you know, so many people in one spot where it's impossible to actually do that many intakes, you know, on a daily basis with that many people, was a ploy. It was an organized strategy to get as many people as possible to one spot to create this mass, and then for them to manipulate the people to do things that were going to get them hurt or killed. And what's happened is that the Mexican community has done a lot to help people because it's a crisis. There's so many people in one spot that they've had to, if you've been following any of that news, it's really hard to get the news in the United States because so many people aren't bilingual. And when you watch the Mexican reporters and the Mexican reports, if you don't speak Spanish, you don't know what's going on. So there's not a lot of information that's been passing showing all the positive things that went on in those communities. But for Trump is just spinning the negative and spinning that this is such a need that he should get what he wants. So these people, it looks to me like they're working for Trump. It's opposite of what they profess, but it looks like they're working on behalf of Trump.
Yeah, they're definitely fueling his base and his messaging that we need this wall and we need it now. And, America being what it always has, it does seem to work to agitate the xenophobes in this country to tell them people are pouring over the border. Yeah. And seeing those images and seeing that imagery and seeing this hyped up, in many cases, completely made up crises, deaths, suffering, and exaggerations of the actual situation for the caravan all end up serving the purposes of the extreme right and those who hate migrants and people of color.
Exactly.
What's really disturbing to me is for me to see so many people that were at Standing Rock feeding that fire, feeding that racist, rhetoric and playing right into the hands of Trump and his administration, especially when they claim to be supporters of indigenous rights and people that went and fought for land and water and sacred, all this and that at Standing Rock. I don't get it. In this report, I will give the names of the groups and individuals currently in Tijuana and or in Mexico and who and what groups they belong to. Some of these individuals come and go across the border and travel throughout both countries, either by plane or by vehicle. Some are people who live in California, either in San Diego or surrounding areas, who focus on crossing donations over the border, as well as activists and agitators from the United States that want to go and meet with the migrant caravan in Mexico. We will begin with the main group through which these organizers are all, these groups are all organizing, excuse me, and where they also communicate their projects on Facebook. The Asylum Seekers Caravan Support Network, which was founded by Evan K. Duke III, I don't think that's his real name, on October 28, 2018. This group has already gained more than 2,000 followers, most of whom were at the protest at Standing Rock and or are anti-fascists, self-proclaimed Antifas, many of whom are also anarchists, and which promotes radical extremist views such as abolishing borders and regaining stolen lands, regaining stolen indigenous lands, and they claim to achieve their goals, quote, by any means necessary, including violence. Now, I don't know if you've been watching my previous shows where I talked about this, but that phrase comes directly from the group BAM, by any means necessary. If you don't know about them, go check out the news and the YouTubes and the Googles and find out more. Or you can go watch my show in which I talked about them recently and how they intersected into this story. This group, BAM, was linked to the distribution of BAM flyers in the Benito Juarez Sports Center on November 30th, which was the day before AMLO, the new president of Mexico, took power, for an action that was supposed to close the border wall, the border entry, the border crossing, on the day that AMLO was to take power. So they staged, they flyered the entire area in Benito Juarez the day before AMLO was to take power in Mexico, to cause chaos and to shut down the border.
Yep.
Those flyers said no to the, I think it said policy, but I'm not sure. It comes in English and in Spanish. I showed it on my show. But it basically said no to the policy of staying in Mexico. Staying in Mexico isn't necessarily the goal of many people in the caravan, but it may be the only option if they are not granted any kind of asylum or entry into the United States otherwise. And unless they want to starve or continue to live off the auspices of donations, they're going to have to either decide to go home or find a place to stay in Mexico. Those are their only options. So saying that, BAM's poster saying that, flyer saying that, they say no, again, is part of that manipulation of controlling the group of migrants in that caravan and not giving them any other options but to stay under their control. You can't go home. You can't go get into the United States because that ain't happening. And you're not taking any kind of asylum in Mexico or asking for a work visa so that you can move on with your life. So BAM's poster also said that they would, in terroristic fashion, shut down the border wall and all commerce and all passage from one country to another unless, with the ultimatum, that the U.S. border open for the entirety of the caravan without regard to background checks or the like. Just all of them come in, and if they don't, we're shutting down the border wall. Today, that caravan went to the embassy, or a contingent of them did anyway, and they made, among other crazy things, the following demands. They want to have the president of the United States remove the president of Honduras because they feel that the United States is responsible. Trump won't even read his briefings.
Exactly.
I don't understand why these people think that he's going to do anything for him. He can't even do things for himself or for people in this country. How in the hell do these people think that he's going to give them asylum or meet any of their demands? It doesn't seem possible to me. Here's another impossible dream of the caravan. They also went and demanded at the American Embassy in Tijuana that they will not return unless the president in Honduras is removed, first of all. And in order to go back, they want each of them $50,000 so they can go back home and live a dignified life from the United States.
That's crazy.
I don't even get it. I don't know how you could, do they think that Trump is Santa Claus?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, I know that Christmas is celebrated differently in other countries, especially throughout Latin America, but I don't think that they're so confused that they think that this is just like the wishing tree season and we'll just go to the Americans and say, I want this and I want it now. And then they'll just get it.
Yep.
But it appears that they do. Okay. So, where was I? I'm going to give you the names of the groups and who they belong to. I showed you asylum seekers. Oh, BAM. We were talking about BAM and all of the demands. So let me just recap by saying BAM has a history of violence and of using violence to reach their goals. And they are members and posters within the group Asylum Seekers Caravan Support Network. I've showed you that on my shows in the past as well. So members of BAM are active and they participate a lot in Asylum Seekers Support Network. Not only promoting the organization, but their actions. Evan, a self-proclaimed anti-fascist, was involved in the protest against the Dakota Access Pipeline with the group of veterans that arrived in December for the Veterans Stand for Standing Rock in 2016. Later on, the group members morphed into Veterans Respond, and later they changed into Veterans Service Corps, with their leadership changing hands from Wes Clark Jr. and Michael A. Wood Jr. to Sedef Buyaktaman and Chris Dusing. Sedef and Chris are still in charge of the Veterans Group, which they claim is now used to do rescue work and humanitarian work in crisis zones or after natural disasters. The protocol of changing names and leadership is common among these groups, who defraud people of their money in order to form said groups and then limit their liability for the performance of whatever objective the money in the group were tasked with. They do so by simply changing the leadership and or name of the group, and even though the new leaders are frequently just minor leaders who haven't yet been outed for crimes and scandals yet, they move along. The truth is that wherever these groups' members go, they instigate violence and they commit crimes such as those described here. Evan K. Duke III founded Abolish ICE and Occupy ICE to abolish immigration and customs enforcement. Recently, Evan handed over the administration of the group Asylum Seekers Caravan Support Network to Myron Dewey and his platform, Digital Smoke Signals. You guys have heard of him.
Oh, yeah.
See how they like change in hands? They change hands and they wash hands.
Oh, yeah.
Caravan Support Network was switched over to Myron Dewey. Currently, both Duke and Dewey are in Tijuana after a brief visit to Texas, to the border in the area of Floresville, Texas, where they were helping start new camps along with members of the Carrizo Come Crudo tribe and their tribal chairman, Juan Mencias, establishing the Somi Sec camp, which in Come Crudo basically means Texas camp, as a base camp for a network of activists led by indigenous leaders that can support migrant caravans and tribes along the U.S. border. From that base camp, they hope to support the forward actions taking place in cities like Laredo, McAllen, El Paso, Brownsville, and the surrounding cities. Watch out, Texas. Juan Mancias is working closely with Duke and with Dewey to establish the support camps for the actions said to be taking place along the U.S.-Mexican border. Mancias, Dewey, and Duke all have the support of millionaire Mary Ann Thompson Frank of Mexican heritage, who was adopted when she was just 5 days old by a white family of American billionaires, who, among other things, owned Southland Corporation, which operates the 7-Eleven franchise stores, as well as being the 12th largest retailer in the United States with more than 7,000 outlets. It also owns 50% yes, I said 50, of the Citgo Petroleum Corporation,
Wow.
the country's largest independent refiner and marketer. Now, you may recall Thompson Frank was a key supporter of the groups associated with the protest at Standing Rock, and especially with the veterans group led by Wesley Clark Jr., whose father, General Clark, ran for president in 2003 and commanded Operation Allied Force in the Kosovo War during his term as the Supreme Allied Commander of NATO from 1997 to 2000. The commander in Europe of NATO.
Wow.
Thompson Frank is a member of the Nexus Executive Committee, a billionaires group which does impact investing, among other projects. Thompson Frank, maybe because of her heritage, has focused on helping indigenous people and causes. Unfortunately, many of the people she supports and promotes end up causing harm or committing crimes. Duke and Dewey among them. In the following article, Thompson Frank promotes the documentary Awake, A Dream of Standing Rock, which was screened at the Menancine Institute, of which she and her husband are the founders. Juan Mencias is also pictured with her in this article of November 21st of 2017. There they are all together. If you scroll down just a little bit, Duke, not that way, the other way, you'll see more and more is Dewey's name. The film Awake captures what it was like in the historic protest using poetic narration by Florence Whitebull and footage shot by Native American filmmaker Myron Dewey, along with Emmy Award-winning filmmaker Josh Fox and James Spion. The film, screened Monday night by Green Source DFW. That's an interesting name that you should remember, because Mary Ann Thompson Frank just did a video thanking them recently on her YouTube channel.
Really?
She is also a supporter of Green Source DFW. And its parent nonprofit, the parent.
Yep, the main one.
The Menancine Institute were both shown in Dallas on the anniversary of one of the most brutal confrontations during that standoff. The documentary showed footage from the November day when the peaceful, unarmed protesters were sprayed with water cannons in sub-freezing temperatures, doused with tear gas, and pelted with rubber bullets. And there, all the way to the left in a green blouse, is Mary Ann Thompson Frank. Behind her is her husband, Joshua Frank. And then in the other green shirt, the dark green, hunter green shirt, is Juan Mencias. And he's got a blue necklace on, bead necklace on. So, that's Juan Mencias. They're all in that article about Thompson Frank's screening of the movie Awake, A Dream of from Standing Rock.
Yeah.
There are a series of shows that I have done, which are on our webpage at kpppfm.com under the program title Mexican Crossing Lines, where we discuss the caravan and the connection to organizations and leaders from the Standing Rock protest in further detail. To find them, simply go to our website and search for Caravan, or in Spanish, Caravana. And you can find all of the shows that we have done in both English and in Spanish for you. Myron Dewey acquired fame at Standing Rock for his agitation and drone piloting, which were the topic of great consternation since he used them both to monitor the movements of authorities and pipeline workers, as well as protesters. Dewey was arrested and his drone confiscated during the Standing Rock protest. During that protest, Dewey and another filmmaker, Josh Fox, which you just saw mentioned in that article, who also produced the movies or documentaries Gasland 1, Gasland 2, and How to Let Go of the World, blah, 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 the longest title I've ever heard for a movie.
Mm-hmm.
As well as others were filming or filmed events that took place at Standing Rock from their biased point of view, of course, and while painting protesters as victims of the cruelty and racism of the local authorities in order to complete their film called Awake, A Dream from Standing Rock. After Standing Rock, in addition to calling himself a pilot, Dewey declared himself an investigative journalist, a filmmaker, a historical trauma trainer, and in more recent terms, he has begun to advocate and participate in searching for missing and murdered Indigenous women as part of the movement for missing and murdered Indigenous women and men. And remember when I told you that Mulaney was now getting into searching for it? Like, these Standing Rock phonies went from one crime and they're like, where's my next crime?
Yep, exactly.
I was kidnapping people and almost killed an elderly woman. Where's my next victim? And then they went to Mexico. In fact, Dewey is currently in Tijuana with Vanessa Dundon, a.k.a. Susie Desba, an Indigenous woman who gained a lot of followers on Facebook and many supporters from Standing Rock after she sustained an eye injury which occurred at the hands of authorities on the night of November 20th, 2016. According to Vanessa and many others, Vanessa and many others identified in this article like to use nicknames instead of their real names, not only to obfuscate their true identities, while claiming that their new names have special meanings to them, as many of them acquired them from Indigenous elders while they were at Standing Rock. Remember when I talked about Dee Dee Banerjee, the Walks with Good Medicine woman?
Oh, yeah.
And then there's like, what's the other guy? Standing Bear, John Gonzalez, all these people that are not native. They're transracialing so hard. They definitely want to be natives and they want to play Indian, preferably for the rest of their lives, because it's fun. It's fun to be an Indian when you don't have to deal with anything that actual Indigenous people have to deal with. And it's fun to exploit them like they're exploiting this caravan, because ultimately for them, going down to Mexico and spending some time in a tent at a shelter that they're not really allowed to stay at, which many of them have been kicked out of, as I've shown you, is a vacation. It's a moment of fun. It's an opportunity to gain fame and fortune and exploit other people while making yourself feel like a good person. But in truth, it doesn't do a whole hell of a lot for Indigenous caravan goers or for the Indigenous people of Mexico, whose house you're basically squatting in and bad-mouthing at the same time. Nonetheless, even though Susie Desba recently sent me information about Marcus Mitchell and his scam, after I had already uncovered it, of course, but she did send me information about it. I can't imagine why, knowing who these fraudsters are and what they're used to cooking up, she couldn't like stop herself from taking the opportunity to go exploit Indigenous people and raise money. She couldn't refuse the opportunity, knowing who she is traveling with and what she's associating herself to. So she had to go. So Susie Vanessa Dundon went to Tijuana with these people. And currently Dundon says she's in Mexico as part of a newly formed group called Missing Flowers, which, like Dewey, like Mulaney Stoneman, the kidnapper of Kathleen Bennett's mom, are all searching for missing and murdered women. In Dundon's case, they supposedly disappeared in Mexico. I find it very, very hard to believe that a woman from Standing Rock, which has questionable vision in one eye, unless I'm mistaken about that, and doesn't speak any Spanish, would be able to find anything in Mexico.
Yeah.
Anything, let alone a missing person. If you don't know your way around there, like when you have people looking for missing people here in these United States, just ask around. It's usually people that are familiar with the terrain they're searching in. And not only do they know the terrain, they know the people.
That's right.
They know, right? Am I crazy? Isn't that how it works?
Oh, yeah, and they're connected to law enforcement, investigators, different resources where you can go look, in a public government agencies. They're very resourceful, because it's when you go missing, it's you got to figure out what happened, and a lot of times there's not a trail. I mean, there's a lot of people, indigenous men and women go missing every day. The United States, they go missing all over the world. And if you're going to try to track somebody, and you've got to have competent people out there doing the research to actually have some strong leads. So if you go to another country, you don't speak the language, you don't know the systems, you don't know anything of that stuff, and you have a bunch of flyers you're going to hand out, that's a starting point. But I don't know how effective that's going to be at all.
No, the first place you would go in another country is to the authorities of that country to find out, do they have the missing person in their database? Are they looking for them? Did they know that this person went missing in their territory? Do they have any information or any kind of report? She hasn't said she's doing any of that stuff. You know why? Because I don't believe it. Because she did a video with Dewey today, I think, where she's talking about the fact that they just went to Kinko's and printed out some flyers to hang up.
Okay.
And that's all I've heard her do, other than hang out with these people from the Caravan, formerly from Standing Rock. Posers, frauds, liars, and criminals. Why? She hangs out with them because she likes to. That's my guess. Why would you sully your name, your reputation, hanging out with those people and taking advantage of Mexicans, Mexico, and the Caravan, while you're lying to the authorities about why you're there, unless you enjoy doing that? It's what you enjoy doing. You want to do it. But that's what Susie Vanessa Dundon is up to right now. How about Myron Dewey? Well, Dewey started traveling to Mexico in November and was reporting, quote unquote, reporting on the Caravan via his live stream, via his phone, on his Facebook account, and also with his drone, just like he was doing at Standing Rock, along with a young man who claims he is an enrolled member of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians named David Gaskin. I showed you videos of these folks before. He was in the comments of my shows, hemming and hawing about how he's a good dude, bro. So, anyway, Gaskin, during and after Standing Rock, was even called the quote-unquote emissary for Free Nations to Standing Rock Sioux Nation. How many of these white Indians, white passing, or fake Indians like Desiree Kane did the Standing Rock Sioux tribe hire and or prop up?
Yeah.
I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. Because we know they did it with fake Miwok Indian Desiree Kane. And this Dave Gaskin's getting promoted on UN television, as well as this Mother Earth Trust, run by that same guy we showed you was impact investing with the Bitcoin people in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
The Bitcoin people. The blockchain people. The blockheads, as I like to call them. Yeah, all involved with this. All involved with this nonsense. Currently, Gaskin is making live videos on Facebook where he misinforms members of the caravan and his mostly American audience on social media while helping groups of instigators, self-described activists, anti-fascists, and protectors of the sacred, they say, which could be anything from water to Mother Earth, or in this case, indigenous caravan goers. Gaskin was reporting, in quotes, about the caravan in Mexico with Dewey back in November and handing out, branding, if you will, the caravan with their merch. They had T-shirts, backpacks,
yep,
telephone chargers, and stickers promoting the prophecy of the eagle and the condor.
Yeah.
Remember they had the black snake prophecy?
That's right.
You got to have an Indian story in there because otherwise, like, how do you fool people? So there's the eagle and the condor prophecy. They've been toting this thing around for years. And anytime they pull it out, it means something new. Guess what it means now? Well, the prophecy purports itself to be the culmination of the meeting of the northern indigenous nations and the southern ones. Leaders from the Asylum Seekers Caravan Support Network have already been telling members of the caravan in their videos that the fulfillment of this prophecy means that indigenous people will be able to reclaim their stolen lands, that past traumas will be healed, among them getting your land back. Also, they promote the idea that no one can be illegal on stolen land. Basically, how are these people calling us criminals when they stole this land? Right?
All right.
So anyway, one of the groups that has been promoted and has funds raised on their behalf in the Asylum Seeker Caravan Support Network is Aral Medicine. Aral Medicine is comprised of medicine carriers and singers, and they plan to take their prophecy as well as the medicine to the caravan. They travel with their medicine and their hand drums. The leader of this group, who goes by the name of Aral Medicine on Facebook, probably not his real name, as well as Dwayne Redwater, have already returned from their trip to both Mexico and California, where they met up with Bertie Gutierrez and took donations and support to the caravan. Wiaka Eagleman also traveled with them, also is a member of the Aral Medicine. And Wiaka is currently in Tijuana with other anti-fascists whose names are Lilith Sinclair and there's Lilith. She is a self-proclaimed sex worker, activist, bleeding heart, citizen of the world, and a piece of trash living in the dumpster fire of the world. On Facebook, Sinclair's interests include anarchists, anti-fascist groups, and extreme left groups like Occupy ICE. She first traveled with Evan Duke to Tijuana back in November along with Cam Coy. This guy, who's from Salem, Oregon, on Facebook. He also participates in anti-fascist, anarchist groups, extreme left groups like Occupy ICE. He also went to Tijuana back in November along with Evan Duke. And it is uncertain currently if Cam is still there. If you know whether or not Cam is still there, hit me up and let me know. And also, they're traveling with Jesse Sandoval and Jake Lee. Let's look at Jake Lee first. This is Jake. We don't have a lot of information about him. We think he's from the Southern California area. He has the same similar interest, anti-fascist, anarchist, Occupy ICE type groups, but also He is focused on indigenous movements and environmental ones like Standing Rock and Stop Line 3 and No KXL. Jesse Sandoval, who I have featured on my shows in the past, traveled back in November to Mexico City and then followed the caravan. And she has been raising money through asylum seekers since they started the group, pretty much. And she's been raising money since she's been in Mexico. She's been a member of the group since November 10, and she's been collaborating extensively with Wiaka Eagleman, Lilith Sinclair, and Dave Gaskin, and Jake Lee, all of whom are still there. Perhaps more than anyone in this cadre of anti-fascists and anarchists, Lilith Sinclair has devoted herself to making videos and posts on Facebook, posting frequently in asylum seekers, in which they mislead and outright lie to the caravan about the conditions of the new shelter El Barretal, for example, among other lies, saying that there's no water or electricity, that Mexican authorities, including the federales, which they love to say in Spanish, are oppressing them and curtailing their human and free speech rights, and that they deny them medical care, among many other well-coordinated lies. In my latest radio program, we documented these lies very well that they were telling to the caravan, and you can find that video on kpppfm.com along with this article, or you can just search it. Migrant Caravan Infiltrators. That's all you got to type in.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning that Sinclair traveled with Duke on his first trip to Tijuana in November, along with McCoy. So I hope people don't get confused and think I'm talking about you when I say Duke, because I'm talking about Evan Duke III.
I know.
But I'm using their last names because that's, once I've referred to them through their full names, I'm just using...
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, well, every time you do that, I go, oh, you're not talking about me. It's Evan Duke. It's like, but every time his name comes, because you'll shorten it. You quit using Evan. You start saying Evan and Evan and Evan, then Duke and Duke and Duke. Yeah, it's not me. I'm not that guy. That's Evan Duke. And plus, the Sam McCoy I hadn't heard about at all. So there's some new people in here that I haven't really been following. That Jessie Sandoval, too. I actually watched her when she was in Mexico City. Because I thought, who is this woman? Because she was saying all these things about when they were in Mexico City, and that's just when Myron was there. And then she was reporting for digital smoke signals. I thought, they got someone in Mexico City reporting for digital smoke signals. And then I found he was there, and he was flopping around. I've been in Mexico City 5 times, and my wife, my guide, my bilingual guide, who grew up, part of her life grew up there, could get me around. So it was like, it's very important to have someone who's connected to the locals to actually be in a city that huge. I mean, it's like the second largest city in the world. I thought it was odd that Myron Dewey was there in the first place. But then this Sandoval woman was kind of taking the lead. I thought, this is interesting. So we've been following her since we saw her appear in Mexico City.
Yes. Well, all of them are also meeting in Tijuana with Duke and Dewey. And Eagleman, as a member of the Chicangu Lakota tribe from the Rosebud Reservation, same as the kidnapper of the Kathleen Bennett case, Mulaney Stoneman, and they are from the same Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. He is a self-proclaimed activist from Standing Rock, and he organized and raised money for the camps at Sacred Stone and Rosebud for Standing Rock. He was also involved in the protest against the pipeline KXL. And as you may recall, he was dating or invited the fake Indian that was hired by the tribe, Desiree Kane.
Oh, yeah.
Which one of the tribal members, which was on the board of the WPLC, Washday Wee Young, posted about in a recent show that I showed you the posts for. Mm-hmm. Go back and watch it.
Yep.
This guy invited her to the camp. She's gone through 3 men from Standing Rock. Then she went to the Remy guy, the Indian problem founder, who she stole the Indian problem from.
Yep.
And is still posting from.
Yep.
She got involved in the Olivia Lone Bear search and was reportedly a sore in everyone's side in that, raising money for a missing woman. And then she went through Aldo Sewani. Who knows if she's still dating that guy?
Oh.
Anyway, yes, these folks have helped to bring in these phony Indians that are speaking on behalf of indigenous people and erasing the voices of real indigenous folks. They have given them power, they have given them visibility, and believability. Wiaka Eagleman is such a person who validated this Desiree Kane. But here's the thing. Here's the kicker. People like Dewey, Dundon, a.k.a. Susie, Wiaka, and Mancias, all of them validate this mission that many of these founders and donors have out there of having indigenous-led movements. See how that works, dude?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If the requirement, both visually or by the donors, is that you have to have indigenous-led movements for indigenous problems, what are you gonna do? Call phonies.
Yeah.
What you gonna do?
Call phonies
in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Who can you call? Call phonies. Yeah, get a Desiree Kane, put brown makeup on her, have her call herself a Miwok, and all of a sudden, boom, you got an Indian that will do what you want and fill the bill, right?
Yep.
Well, people like Dewey, Mancias, Dundon, and Wiaka not only have validated fake Indians and non-Indians in the movement for Indian issues, they are exploiters, and they have taken every opportunity to, use their own indigeneity to trade for opportunities like this one, to lead in exploiting indigenous movements like the Caravan. Wiaka validates the mission. All of these people, in fact, validate missions of having indigenous-led movements, like the case of the Caravan.
Oh yeah.
Where donors expect to see indigenous faces in front of this humanitarian crisis. Brown faces. I can't say it. Sam Slovic. Slavic? What do you think it is?
I think it's Slavic or Slovic, either one.
Well, he directed a documentary called Radicalized about the radical resistance, American resistance, through the lens of anarchists in Los Angeles, which was launched in 2015, and his Facebook page indicates that he is a supporter of Standing Rock and its key figures, and that he was also involved in Occupy Wall Street, as well as arriving in Mexico in November on the 12th. He traveled with the Caravan from Tijuana and regularly posted Facebook videos, lives from Tijuana, which he shared with members of asylum seekers and that were shared by a lot of the members of asylum seekers. He also is a friend or knows Seven McDonald, the person that promoted, that did the PR work out at Standing Rock on behalf of Wesley Clark Jr., who is the co-founder of Veterans Stand for Standing Rock. She comments frequently on Slavic's live streams.
Okay.
Remember me telling you about her?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Well, Mr. Slavic is among those who seed misinformation to the Caravan and their American audiences. He administers a protest page on Facebook, which appears, heavily connected to media platforms in Los Angeles, Hollywood, y'all. Specifically with this woman, Seven McDonald, which I told you did PR work at Standing Rock for Wesley Clark. Remember that Clark was also a correspondent for the Young Turks and a friend of Cenk Uygur, its founder. It should be noted that Asylum Seekers is currently making a call out to veterans,
Oh, boy.
both in the U.S. and those deported into Mexico, to join the caravan in solidarity and protect the caravan from the Mexican authorities and people. I told you they want to pit these folks against each other.
Mm-hmm.
For why? Who knows? And he says, in my show about the Caravan Infiltrators, which I did in Spanish, it shows a clip of one of Slovik's live streams in which you can hear him lying about the conditions at the new shelter, El Barretal, which none of these folks want people to go to, as well as being questioned by Seven McDonald in the comments. Now, McDonald, I want to remind you, manages and promotes many Hollywood actors who attend events like Standing Rock and promote them. I expect these actors to make an appearance in Tijuana or in Mexico at the border at any moment.
Oh, yeah.
You can also find that video in my Spanish show, along with the publication of this show on our page. Bertie Gutierrez, if you don't know her, is the founder of the group Bridge of Love Across the Border. She's an activist who crosses donations from the U.S. into Tijuana. She's been taking them to the Caritas shelter as well as to the old Benito Juarez location. And this woman, since the group's inception, the Asylum Seeker Support Caravan Network Support Group, they've been heavily promoting both her and her fundraisers.
Yeah.
And she's also connected with key members of the group who are currently in Tijuana, as well as promoting and putting people into contact with each other that Bertie knows in Mexico, who she supports and promotes, like Pitaya Queen, or OJ Queen, or Nakai Flot, or Roberto Nakai Flot Jr. Guevara, however she may be calling herself at this time, excuse me. She is the leader of the LGBTQ caravan and the person that runs Diversidad Sin Fronteras, which she stole from Hockenberry. I showed this on my show all about Pitaya. I had a whole show about her. Bertie is also connected very closely to TYT's producer of content, one of them anyway, Mark Lane, and his Minority Humanitarian Foundation. And Mark Lane began, this is very interesting, Mark Lane began his organization website for the Minority Humanitarian Foundation in 2018. But it was very, very similar to another organization that is now defunct that was started by someone who he knew because he was part of this like group of business people, and he was part in this like business association, and one of the people that was in that business association was the former founder of the other organization that has the exact same name.
Wow.
That he really had nothing to do with, that other organization. Okay. But I feel like it was stealing the name and the renown of what that other organization was known for. I'll tell you more about that in a second. As well as Al Otro Lado and Nicole Ramos, who I've also showed in my past shows, the Caritas shelter, and the vegetarian business, restaurant, collective, meeting place, artist gathering house, Enclave Caracol.
Okay.
Now, Bertie has a volunteer who is associated with the Asylum Seeker Group who's helping her to distribute donations that she and others have collected from the United States, and they cross over into Mexico. on a page that was raising funds for that caravan, in which Evan Duke shows up in the comments showing his support. Birdie instructs people to lie to Border Patrol agents about the reasons for their entry into Mexico and about their length of stay. Here is that post. There's the donation drive, and it's posted by AIM SoCal. And if you scroll down, you will see Birdie. There's people talking about, how they were questioned by Border Patrol about taking donations in and that they weren't allowed to come in. And the Mexican Customs were very adamant and almost confiscated the donations away from this person. And Birdie replies very angrily, a lot of those bastards are corrupt. Here at the Tijuana border, here at the Tijuana border, we don't ever say we are taking donations in. Really? Even though that's what you're doing?
Yeah.
You don't ever tell them the truth about why you're going into Mexico? I've got into Mexico a ton of times throughout my life. I have never lied to border agents. You know why? Because you don't need to. If you're not going to Mexico to do anything criminal or untoward, they don't have a problem with you being there. Even if you're there to go across the border and watch strippers or whatever. They don't care about that. But lying to the Border Patrol is something else. You can usually get a visa if you tell them, I'm going to hang out here for more than a week. They'll give you a visa for 3 months. If that's not enough, if you don't think that's enough, they'll give you a visa for longer. But you have to tell them where you're going to be at, and you have to tell them what you're going to be doing. If you don't lie to them, they give it to you pretty easy. I've never struggled getting one. Why these people refuse to request one even and won't tell people in customs why they're there tells me one thing. What they're doing isn't okay with authorities, because otherwise they would be able to tell the authorities what they were, and they would be given access to Mexico, to Tijuana. People literally go into Tijuana to do the most untoward things. Like, it's known for a place to go and watch women having, performing bestiality and all these other crazy things. But whatever these people are doing, they have to keep hidden. They can't talk about it. That is very suspicious to me. What do you think about that, Dave?
Well, I think, too, is when we read more on this post.
Oh, yeah. Let's finish reading it, because she goes ahead and...
She's given instructions.
Yeah, she does.
It's like, she says...
you have to be inconspicuous.
You have to try to be as inconspicuous as possible. Better to go in the evening and put everything in black trash bags, too. Never have donations above the window where they are clearly visible. Buy a few groceries like chips and soda and say you're going to across to have some fun. Buy some gifts, etc. That's... And you can do that. I mean, you can go to Tijuana and do that. You can go over for... It's like, going in for the day, coming out. Can go have lunch there, coming out. But what they're doing, and that's confusing to me, especially since they're raising so much money for people to give them money, and they're calling for donations. We need tarps, we need blankets, we need tents, that people will drive up to the border and hide it all, like they're bringing in contraband or something.
They are.
And hide it because they're not supposed to be bringing it over, and it's like...
No, it's not because they're not supposed to be bringing it over. People can bring stuff over.
Oh, yeah, we bring stuff over all the time. Every time we went to Mexico, we
take donations.
We bring an extra suitcase and fill it with electronics and donations, things we're going to give people,
Yeah.
And things will
we
be
tell
used.
them.
And we tell them right there, we got stuff that will be useful, it's not useful to me. I get rid of this thing here, these radios, these Walkman and these stereo stuff. I'm going to give it away. And they're like, fine, it's not been a big deal.
But it is because these people aren't going to go and give it to the shelter where the majority of the people are, where the government has decided to house them. They want to go and fuel the protesters that want to create violent clashes with the Border Patrol and shut down the crossing. You think Border Patrol, Customs, And authorities both on the border of Tijuana and on the other side don't know that people like Bertie Gutierrez are doing just that already?
Yeah.
They do. Reporters like me have been making sure to send this information across the border so that y'all can be identified.
Yeah.
So yes, they know. They know exactly what you're doing. That's why they have to hide. Show the rest of that post that she put up.
All right.
And read it for me. She says,
Never have a donation.
buy a few groceries.
Yep, buy a few groceries like chips and soda and say you're going across to have some fun, buy some gifts, etc.
Okay. What those two last instructions are very specific, okay? Because how long does it take you to do some shopping? One day.
Yep.
You don't usually go shopping for weeks, right? You're not going to cross the border and tell somebody, I'm just going to go shopping. You would say, I'm coming to stay for a little vacation. I'm going to go to destination XYZ, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you say things like, I'm crossing over just to have dinner, to have some fun, like watch a movie or see some entertainment or go shopping, that usually means you're requesting a day pass.
Yeah.
You're saying language that would indicate you're only staying for a few hours or one day, which would not require you to get a visa.
Mm-hmm.
So they're lying to avoid having to get a visa, which doesn't take long and isn't difficult to do. But they're doing it so that they don't have to be detected in Mexico. But you know what else that means? It means you're there illegally. It means you're there illegally because your day pass has probably expired more than once. It means that you acquired no visa under false pretenses, which you should have had to acquire legally to be in Mexico. And since you lied to border authorities, they can not only deny you that entrance, they can bar you from coming into the country. So keep that in mind as you tell people to commit crimes, Bertie.
Yeah.
In order to evade questioning or investigation by border authorities, that is what Bertie is doing. What this means is that rather than getting proper visas from customs and border authorities that give them permission to be in the country for their philanthropic endeavors, they are lying and only obtaining day passes, which many of them are overstaying by days and weeks, making them undocumented in Mexico and in violation of Mexican law. They are also deceiving authorities by not stating their real purpose for entry and instead saying that they are only going shopping or for a day's excursion. While neither of these are serious felony crimes, they still are violations of the law. You're breaking the law. Breaking the law. Breaking the law. This has been confirmed by their own live streams in which they have been questioned. And they're like, no, we didn't do that. And or their posts in which they tell you that they're lying to officials about their true motives for visiting Tijuana. Okay? Enclave Caracol appears to be a base of operations for the organizers, for their press conferences, for the caravan, and as a warehouse for donations brought by people like Bertie Gutierrez and her volunteers, and as an oasis where caravan leaders and goers are protected by any means necessary.
Yeah.
In recent Facebook Live videos by Dewey and Duke, where they have finally began to show the face of their interpreter, Rodrigo, likely not his real name. I've been able to find very little about this guy. But he did have a post on his Facebook page that said, from November 20th, that the protesters against the migrant caravan in Tijuana were threatening him physically. So he was painting the Mexican people once again as thugs and racists and Trump supporters and caravan haters. And here he's saying, you know, I'm Mexican who speaks Spanish, and I was being attacked by the Mexicans in Mexico. But in addition to that, most of his posts on his Facebook page are almost exclusively asylum seeker member posts and asylum seeker group posts.
I see.
He has posted about Enclave Caracol, where he makes a call out to identify an individual who he said was identified in the post as a government transition team member that they cast out of this restaurant because he was taking pictures of people in a public space. And Rodrigo de Rodrigo posts this saying, keep an eye out for this Emmer effer. That's what he said about him. Except he said the actual expletive.
Yeah.
I didn't say the expletive, but he said it. Oh, that's funny. My autocorrect corrected my word expletive to explosion.
Oh, okay.
It's funny. Kind of funny, but not. Anyway, in order to keep the Caravan members at the old and now condemned shelter Benito Juarez, or really outside on the street, blocking the street and blocking people from studying in the schools, people like Gutierrez and members of the asylum seekers group are taking donations directly to El Caracol Enclave. You can see here from a post that they made in Asylum Seekers Caravan Support Network that Birdie was taking donations directly to the Enclave Caracol. It was the other one that you took down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Could you put the other one up? That was, nope, that's me. So if you could make that smaller, you'll notice that it was posted in the Asylum Seekers Support Caravan Network page, which is why I snapshotted the whole thing so you could see. You need to go down further. Nope, the other way. So you can see that it was posted by Evan Duke and shared by Evan Duke in the Asylum Seekers Caravan Support Network group. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And so there she is saying, Bridge of Love across the border, delivering donations to Enclave Caracol. Now, where have you heard, other than Asylum Seeker Support Group Network, where have you heard authorities in Mexico, people in Mexico that are helping the caravan or working with the caravan directly in that country, saying, take donations to this vegetarian restaurant?
Yeah. Never.
Only these people are doing that.
Wow.
Only these people are doing that because they're diverting donations from the shelter housing over 2,500 people now, including most of the women and the children, to instead make sure that they keep the people outside of the Benito Juarez location supplied and staying in stasis there. So, and in the post of Gutierrez, you can see her taking donations directly to people at the Benito Juarez location at night. Here she is delivering donations to asylum seekers in the caravan at night. You can see the picture is dark there with another lady named Estela Jimenez, and they're all holding their donations that she's delivered to them. This is outside of Benito Juarez. Anybody that's seen what the Barretal looks like can immediately tell the difference right away. She did this the first night they were evacuating people, to keep people probably from evacuating, as others in the Caravan Support Network group were telling them that there was no electricity and no water and that there was no showers and they couldn't wash their clothes there. And I'm like, they don't have any of those things at the ball field with no roof. Why do you keep telling them not to go to the safe shelter? So I want you to know, Pitaya Queen, although she is very important, I have dedicated an entire show to her, both in Spanish and in English. That's how important I thought she was to cover. And the LGBTQ Caravan and her Facebook group, Diversidad Sin Fronteras. My eyes are playing tricks on me.
Oh, what?
Which she reportedly stole from a queer Mexican who goes by the name of Hockenberry. You can find those shows on KPPP-FM. So I'm not going to repeat everything that we know about her here, but suffice it to say, Pitaya Queen is also connected to the indigenous leaders and other non-indigenous activists that were part of the protests at Standing Rock. Pitaya and her LGBTQ caravan are heavily promoted and fundraised for and supported by the group, the people in the groups and the individuals in the Asylum Seekers Caravan Support Network. Bertie Gutierrez, specifically Myron Dewey, Evan Duke, and Mark Lane. You can find my shows about Pitaya on kppfm.com. Unicorn Riot is a media group that made its name at many protests against police brutality and other conflicts throughout the United States, such as marches and natural disasters. They were the first news organizations to document the protest at Standing Rock, and they've continued to share and support the propaganda espoused by former Standing Rock leaders and groups associated with them, like Asylum Seekers. Mimicking the misinformation spread by group members of Asylum Seekers, as well as furthering the mantra to their American audience that the caravan is being oppressed, repressed, and under constant threat. You know, Duke, when I reached out to Lorenzo Serna during the Standing Rock story we were investigating about Kathleen Bennett, given that we had met him before, I thought, as a colleague out of professionalism, he would look into the stuff we were reporting and help us share it. Even if he couldn't investigate it, that he could use his platform to help free an innocent Lakota woman and help her reunite with her elderly mother with dementia. But he said no. Yep.
Plus, he avoided this, too.
Oh,
you know, we ran into him numerous times out at Standing Rock, you know, and it'd be like, hey, you know, and he would just want to brush by us and get away from us as quickly as possible. And so, you know, when we reached out to him because we needed some research done and stuff, he was like totally hands off. Nope, not going to work with you guys at all. And they're like, what did we do to you, dude?
Well, we were investigating the opposite of the people probably supporting and paying him.
Exactly.
Right? They have a nonprofit, although I don't know for how long, because they haven't filed any of their paperwork for this last year.
Yeah. I don't know how long that takes, but you know, once you quit filing your 990s, even the 990 postcard, even I think it catches up to you and they can come and revoke your nonprofit standing. But it might take a little time. It's not like instant. You miss 1 year, miss 2 years. I think if you miss like more than 2 years in a row, that you're kind of on thin ice on there.
Maybe they should get somebody in the Standing Rock Phonies group that has been funding them to pay for someone to do their taxes.
Do their taxes, yeah.
So that they can stay alive. If they care about that. Yeah. Otherwise, they could just be a defunct organization like Activate Now. I guess it doesn't really matter, right?
Keep on doing.
For them, it doesn't really matter whether it's real or not. They were, of course, as you know, the very first news organization out at Standing Rock. And as I said, they've been spreading this misinformation, but they're not the only ones. Other media platforms such as, by the way, many of whom were also out at Standing Rock, birthed from Standing Rock, like Renegade Media and TYT. TYT pre-existed, but they were at Standing Rock. And Truth Against the Machine was born and quickly died not too soon thereafter out of Standing Rock. And Jordan Sheridan's, reporting out there along with, what was her name? The rapist girl?
Oh, Chelsea Lyons.
Kent. So this producer of content, Mark Lane, who is currently out in Tijuana, works for TYT, the Young Turks. And they are all linked to the lies and the propaganda that is being spread on social media and in news about the caravan and about Mexico and about the Mexican authorities. These so-called media sources had much the same functioning during Standing Rock. Currently, Renegade Media is in Tijuana spreading the message from asylum seekers group members on the ground and in social media. So whatever it appears that they are doing, they're certainly carrying water for this asylum seekers group. Mark Lane is heavily connected to Bertie Gutierrez, and he is one of 3 members of the Minority Humanitarian Foundation. Remember I told you their website was just created on the November 27th of this year?
Yeah.
Like literally right now. Remember when we looked up Bill Reddingfisher?
Oh, yeah, just been created.
His organization, his security company, their website had just been created like in the days before he went to Standing Rock.
Yep.
And this brand spanking new organization is supposedly has FEMA behind them and Homeland Security. I'm like, I don't know about that.
And charging hundreds of thousands of dollars too.
Right. That's the scam. I've seen it before, so I'm not surprised by it anymore. This group's mission is to, quote, provide a humanitarian response to the issues facing immigrants and refugees on a global scale. And apparently, it's based out of San Diego. Let me tell you, what do you think Mark Lane's background is? Doing this work that he's doing and giving TEDx talks about refugees and migrants and saving people and telling them that he can get them asylum and crossing people into the United States and raising money for children that are invalids within the care. What do you think his background was in?
I don't know, but I would think a person like that would have some legal training. That would have some.
Nope.
They would have some media training.
Nope.
What?
Nope.
Social work.
No, I'll give you a hint. Remember I told you he was part of a downtown business association with the guy that he probably stole the idea for this organization from?
Bitcoin.
No. Bitcoin is worse than this.
Okay.
If you can imagine. But he used to... he's a oyster shucker. He's a fishmonger. No, he had a seafood restaurant.
Oh, I see.
He ran a seafood restaurant.
I see. It qualifies.
That went out of business.
Yeah, okay.
He claims because it supported refugees.
Ah.
Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
His backstory is super weird. By the way, along with this article, I will have his TEDx talk in Tijuana that he gave about refugees. Curiously, this Minority Humanitarian Foundation that he just founded is very similar to another similarly named organization that was started back in 2014 by that guy, and I told you was in the business association named Mark Arabo, and their mission was to streamline efforts to establish a safe passage for those needing to leave the country of Iraq. Iraq. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I said
Iraq.
Iraq.
Yeah.
That's vastly different.
Yeah, different parts of the world for sure.
Like Gutierrez and the group Asylum Seekers Caravan Support Network, Mark Lane supports and has met with the LGBTQ Caravan and Pitaya Queen, in addition to all of his other phonies. Lane has recently appeared repeatedly. I think that's an understatement. A lot. There's dozens of articles that have him as a source about refugees and caravans all over the country. It's crazy.
Wow.
About migration, and especially in the last months, since he is a content creator for the Young Turks.
I see.
He provides content for them. He provided content about the last caravan that came through Tijuana in May. And he has also been interviewed by Cenk Uygur about immigrants, refugees, migrants in July. And specifically, he was interviewed about a hunger strike that activists were doing in protest of ICE detentions. It's pretty funny. He's like, Cenk is announcing him. He's like, this guy is, he's a bad guy. He's gotten himself arrested for feeding the hungry.
Oh, yeah.
He's currently on a hunger strike right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're protesting ICE. And he turns it over to Mark, and Mark says, Actually, I just ate. I was only on a hunger strike for one day.
Yeah.
In solidarity. He's kind of a roly-poly guy, and I can't imagine him going on a hunger strike for 5 minutes. But
really. Never look
but
at him
currently,
again.
by the way, everyone associated with the migrant caravan in Mexico is saying they are on a hunger strike.
Yeah, really.
They're all on a hunger strike.
Yeah.
Everybody's starving.
I haven't eaten today, so.
When they announced their hunger strike, they were saying the kids were going to hunger strike. You remember that? And then they were like, people in the media were like, the kids are going to hunger strike too? And they're like, no, that was too crazy. Nobody will believe that. So they took it back. They took it back. Anyway, this guy, Lane, is currently in Tijuana with many others of the asylum seeker groups, and he poses as a protector of the caravan and as well as someone with connections to people in the U.S. that can help people obtain asylum, to lawyers, to activists, and to media connections. So, I mean, they're selling the dream. They're literally selling the American dream. They're making people in the caravan believe that they can deliver it. Whether or not they can doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that all those people that made the call out for you to come and protect the water of the Missouri River and 17 million people and stop the pipeline failed miserably at doing any of it. I don't believe, listen to me clearly, I don't believe they ever intended to stop that pipeline. Not for a minute. The people that called you and said, please help us, were in on it from the get-go and were ready to line people up and send them to jail and did not give a rip whether they made it out or not, just as long as they got their paycheck. These people, many of whom are the same exact people, are doing the same thing now. Their hearts have hardened to the damage that they do along the way. The people that end up raped, hurt, maimed, put in jail, or otherwise traumatized by their actions, defrauded, etc. They just go to the next town and keep doing what they do. And that's why we have to share this and spread it out. And any of the people that are reproducing, they're mimicking their lies, their propaganda, sharing the same kind of message, exploiting this caravan in support of those who are manipulating people who desperately need help, who desperately need humanitarian assistance, which Mexico is readily supplying for them. Those people need to be called out. Be they media, be they lawyers, groups, organizations, be they nonprofits, NGOs, leaders of these organizations or groups, what have you. But just know that there are Standing Rock Caravan Infiltrators, and they are hard at work. And I have some other distressing news I'm going to part with. I don't know if you saw this, Duke, but those clergy that are getting themselves arrested, that was so reminiscent of Standing Rock, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Guess what? They're with this group called CAIR, C-A-I-R.
Yeah.
And some of the folks that are sharing this and reposting this are imams close to Linda Sarsour.
Oh, boy. Wow.
The same person in charge of the Women's March with Tamika Mallory, that I told you have 1 degree of separation from, people in her family were put in jail for raising money for terrorist organizations. Linda Sarsour's brothers went to jail for raising money through a furniture store in Michigan for Hamas.
Yeah.
Linda Sarsour's husband is very cozy with a lot of imagery that shows he too is in support of very extremist ideas, anti-Semitic and terrorist-loving ideas. And so I question anything that gives me this repeat cycle spin of Linda Sarsour and all of this nonsense that I've been reporting on now for 2 years. When will it end? I hope very, very soon. Thanks for being with me. Share this out all over the place, and buenas noches.